Well, the course in the road right now, the other path, is 1,000 years of prosperity. You know, the true meaning of the word millennium. We're at a crossroads. We either go into total subjugation or we go into total independence.
They were telling you that they didn't have any money. They were telling you that there was a small surplus, and then we had this big phony fight over who would get little bits and pieces out of it. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, they're taking over. They own most of the stock market. They almost own everything. Do a search on the net for CAFR. You'll get the government's own sites everywhere.
What is essential at this point in time, Alex, is to get a model up on the playing field. Once the model is up, by example, the game is over.
So get a city or county, preferably a county, to do it. Show people taxation phased out in 3 years. Show people with surpluses on top of that. Show them the fraud, that they really own everything, and that we supposedly own this country, and that everybody else will follow suit. If not, we're enslaved. You are the leaders out there. You better take action on this, ladies and gentlemen. It's up to you. Thank you for joining us, Walter Berian.
And then there's the government always telling you, turn in your guns, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be wonderful. Oh, we had to take those old retired people's home over there in the working class neighborhood. They didn't pay their taxes. Everybody's got to tighten their belt. Well, here is a former Treasury agent, Joe Bannister. In the last 2 years, Mr. Bannister has gone public on national television, in the newspapers, you name it, about how the IRS is a collection agency for the private, run-for-profit Federal Reserve that's, well, running this whole comprehensive annual financial report scam that we've just exposed. Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, more and more Americans are fighting this and coming out against the developments. It's time for you to join the team. Many hands make light work. The IRS is a criminal organization. The 16th Amendment was never ratified to give you the income tax. You pay your taxes to the private banks. It's called the New World Order. And now they want to THX 1138 you. That is, dumb you down 110%.
Well, we're here in Northern California, and a few weeks ago on my radio program, we talked to Joe Bannister. In fact, his story's starting to gain a lot of attention. There's going to be an article in Media Bypass, and he's been doing a lot of radio interviews with people that are interested in the truth of what's really happening. He also has a website that contains the letter that he wrote to the IRS Commissioner, Charles Rossetti. And again, his name is Joe Bannister, and he was a special Treasury agent assigned to the IRS to investigate people that were filing fraudulent tax returns or simply hiding assets. And thanks a lot for spending some time with us, Mr. Bannister. God bless.
Thanks, Alex.
Basically, just start out and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you stumbled upon the truth.
Well, I started out as a CPA. I worked in public accounting, and I decided that I wanted a little more excitement, and decided to become a law enforcement officer in the federal government. Well, the Internal Revenue Service is... his job is to collect income taxes and some excise taxes. And the Criminal Investigation Division, which I was a part, investigates criminal violations of those tax laws.
And when did you start to, well, tell us how it all began. What made you first want to investigate the Internal Revenue Code yourself and not just take the manuals and the codes that you used when investigating tax evaders?
Well, in December of 1996, I was listening to the radio here in the Bay Area, and I heard a lady named D.V. Kidd come on the radio, and she started saying some very unbelievable things, like the income tax was voluntary, that the 16th Amendment was never ratified, and that that federal income taxes don't go towards providing revenue for the U.S. government. And I thought those claims were awfully outrageous, but she was talking about it on a radio show hosted by a man who I trusted, and that made me want to dig deeper and see what it was she was saying and what evidence she had to back it up.
Absolutely. And so, in 1996 you started investigating. How long did you investigate before you came to your conclusions?
A little over 2 years. So I basically my investigation ended right about the time I was forced to resign.
Can you tell us that story and also get into some of the things that you uncovered that are historical?
Well, I'd say after a good year and a half, I basically in my mind came to the realization that all her claims were correct. That in fact the income tax was voluntary, although it sounds kind of strange to be saying that, because we all know that people go to prison, they lose their homes, they have their wages garnished. But the reason that the IRS constantly refers to the income tax as being voluntary is because of our U.S. Constitution and the severe limitations that are placed on the federal government's ability to tax us. So
there are only certain forms of constitutional taxation.
That's correct. That our income taxes do not, provide revenue as I always believed they did. It's more like a cash advance type system where the federal government borrows fiat money from the Federal Reserve, and then our income taxes are used as a vehicle to pay interest on that debt. Well, the printing of the money, another thing that I found out, which totally surprised me, was that they print the money and there's no value to it, and they in a sense print it and out of nothing. They make it out of nothing, simply because they have the power to force us to use the currency.
And it's kind of like a rat in a maze. And we never question the maze itself, never think outside the box. And that's why you're rare. Well, more and more people are in government standing up. This is becoming more and more clear, but it's still rare in the IRS, Mr. Bannister, for somebody to actually pull back and see this. What was it like, let's say, a year into your studies? Because you say you studied for about 2 years before you finally made your decision with the evidence. What was it like about a year into it?
It was very difficult because I took the job thinking that I could use my financial skills to fight crime, go after the bad guys, and I did. Money launderers, drug smugglers. One particular case was even featured on America's Most Wanted, so I was really enjoying myself. So it really it shook my belief system to its very foundations, and was really very difficult for me to continue doing the job and excelling at it, because my mental state it was difficult, to go to work every day, even though I wasn't daily, arresting tax evaders or people that didn't file tax returns. I wasn't personally doing that, but I still just felt it was very difficult to just go through the day-to-day process of the job, knowing what I was finding out, and not
because you found out that you were putting people in jail for something that the very system itself was doing.
At least the agency as a whole was doing that, and I felt that sooner or later I needed to start speaking out publicly, because I felt, clearly a tax can only be voluntary or mandatory, and if it is voluntary, then it is wrong and illegal to prosecute, harass, seize money from people who don't volunteer.
Where does the money go? They throw this fiat money out there. We take the money up, and correct me if I'm wrong, we put labor into it, we work to attain it, and thus they steal our labor.
In a sense, that's correct. I mean, for quite some time, I'd hear D.V. Kidd talking about, the Federal Reserve and how we're slaves, and I didn't really understand what she meant. But when you really spend a little time and educate yourself on the way the process works, it's really very simple economics. And I don't have an economics degree or anything like that, but you can eventually see that when the source of the money supply is a bank and the destination of the money supply is a bank,
and the controller of the money supply is a bank, and the interest rates, that's total, complete monopoly. It's a money trust.
You basically have you can't get out of the slavery. You can't get out of the constantly increasing supply of money, which is another thing I noticed and never really thought about, is that although they constantly will tell you that we're trying to keep inflation under control, we're trying to minimize the effects of it, if you look at it over a period of decades, it's always going up. It never goes down or disappears. It's basically on an upward tilt forever and ever and ever. The economics of it, eventually, it ends up destroying the economy and the people in it.